The shot rang out just as Rebecca Easton stepped off the stagecoach, and she watched in horror as the bullet kicked up dust 3 feet from where a tall rancher stood his ground in the middle of the dusty street. It was August 1882 in Animas Forks, Colorado, a mining town perched high in the San Juan Mountains, and apparently she had arrived right in the middle of a war. "That is your final warning, Owen Ellis," a heavyset man with a silver badge shouted from the shelter of the general store's porch. "You got no right to that water, and I will see you hang before I let you steal what belongs to the Carmichael Mining Company." The rancher, Owen Ellis, stood perfectly still, his hands hanging loose at his sides, though Rebecca could see the tension in his broad shoulders beneath his worn work shirt. His hat shadowed most of his face, but she could see the hard line of his jaw. "Sheriff Mathers, you know as well as I do that my father filed proper claim to those water rights back in '63. I have got every legal right to divert that creek through my property. Your father is dead, and so are his so-called rights," the sheriff spat. "Now you get on out of town before I decide to lock you up for disturbing the peace." Rebecca grabbed her carpetbag and pressed herself against the side of the stagecoach, her heart hammering. She had traveled all the way from St. Louis to take up a teaching position at the small schoolhouse here, and this was not exactly the peaceful mountain town her brother had described in his letters. But then again, Daniel had always been prone to exaggeration and omission in equal measure. Owen Ellis turned slowly, and for just a moment his eyes met hers. They were a startling shade of blue, like the sky above the peaks that ringed this impossible town. Something in his gaze made her breath catch, not fear exactly, but a recognition of something raw and desperate. Then he tipped his hat to her, a gesture so unexpectedly courteous given the circumstances, and walked away down the street toward a tired-looking horse tied to a post. "You can come out now, miss," the sheriff called, his voice taking on an oily politeness that made Rebecca's skin crawl. "That troublemaker is gone. Welcome to Animas Forks. You must be the new schoolteacher we have been expecting." Rebecca forced herself to step forward, clutching her bag. "Yes, I am Rebecca Easton. I was told my brother Daniel would meet me here." "Daniel got called out to one of the mines this morning. Cave in at the Lucky Irish. He sent word for you to wait at the boarding house. I will have someone take your trunk over." The sheriff stepped down from the porch, and Rebecca could smell whiskey on his breath even from several feet away. "Name is Hiram Mathers. I keep the peace around here, such as it is." "What was that about?" Rebecca asked, unable to stop herself. "That man you were shooting at." "Shooting near," the sheriff corrected with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Just a warning. Owen Ellis is trying to steal water that rightfully belongs to the mining company. In a place like this, water means life, miss. We cannot have folks taking what is not theirs." Something about the way he said it made Rebecca doubt every word, but she simply nodded. She had learned long ago that it was better to observe and understand before making judgments, especially in a new place. "I see. Where might I find this boarding house?" The sheriff pointed to a 2-story building with peeling white paint. "Right there. Mrs. Chen runs it. Good woman, keeps a clean house. You will be comfortable enough." As Rebecca made her way across the street, she could not help but glance in the direction Owen Ellis had gone. He was riding out of town now, his shoulders set in a way that spoke of bone-deep weariness. Whatever was happening here, it was clearly taking its toll on him. Mrs. Chen turned out to be a small Chinese woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner that Rebecca liked immediately. "You are the teacher," she said, not a question. "Your brother paid for a month in advance. Room is upstairs, second door on the left. Meals are at 7 in the morning and 6 at night. You miss them, you go hungry. No men in the rooms, no exceptions." I understand, Rebecca said. Thank you. You seem like a smart girl, Mrs. Chen said, studying her. So I will tell you something for free. Stay away from the trouble between Owen Ellis and the Carmichael Company. People who get involved end up hurt or worse. I just arrived, Rebecca protested. I do not even know what the trouble is about. Good, keep it that way. Mrs. Chen handed her a key. Your trunk will be up soon. Rebecca climbed the narrow stairs to her room, which turned out to be small but scrupulously clean, with a window that looked out over the mountains. The view was breathtaking, all soaring peaks and vast sky, so different from the cramped streets of St. Louis. She had wanted an adventure, a chance to make her own way after years of living in her aunt's house, teaching in her aunt's school, living under her aunt's rules. Well, she had gotten her adventure, it seemed. She was unpacking her trunk an hour later when she heard raised voices from the street below. Curious, she went to the window and looked down. A group of men were gathered outside the sheriff's office, and she recognized the sheriff's voice rising above the others. I am telling you, we need to settle this once and for all. Ellis is not going to back down, and Mr. Carmichael is losing patience. The mines need that water. So what are you suggesting? Another voice asked. I am suggesting we go out to his ranch and convince him proper-like. If he will not see reason, well, accidents happen. Rebecca's stomach turned. This was not justice, this was intimidation, possibly worse. She pulled back from the window, her mind racing. She did not know Owen Ellis, had only seen him for a few moments, but the thought of men going out to his ranch to convince him made her sick. Before she could think better of it, she grabbed her shawl and hurried downstairs. Mrs. Chen looked up from where she was preparing vegetables in the kitchen. Where are you going? I need to speak to my brother, Rebecca lied. I need to know where to find him. Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed. Your brother is at the Lucky Irish Mine 3 miles east of town. But you do not want to go to the mines, miss. It is not safe, and they will not let you in anyway. Then where is the Ellis Ranch? No, Mrs. Chen said flatly. I told you to stay out of it. Please, I just want to warn him. Those men are planning something. Those men are always planning something, Mrs. Chen said. Owen Ellis knows the danger he is in. He has known for months. But if you must go, take the North Road out of town. His ranch is about 5 miles out near Cunningham Creek. You will see the sign. Mrs. Chen shook her head. I hope you know what you are doing, girl. I do not want to explain to your brother why his sister got mixed up in something that is none of her business. Rebecca did not let herself think about it too hard. She just went to the livery stable and asked about renting a horse. The stable boy, a skinny youth with enormous ears, looked at her skeptically. You know how to ride, miss. I grew up on a farm in Missouri, Rebecca said, which was true, even if that farm had been small and she had not ridden in several years. I can manage. He saddled a placid mare for her, and she paid him with some of her carefully hoarded money. The ride out of town was harder than she had anticipated. The road was rough, and she was out of practice. But the sheer beauty of the landscape distracted her from her aching muscles. Aspens shimmered golden in the late afternoon light, and the air smelled of pine and cold water. She found the Ellis Ranch as the sun was starting to sink toward the peaks. It was a modest spread, a log house that looked like it had seen better days, a barn that leaned slightly to one side, and several corrals that were empty except for a few horses. The whole place had an air of struggle about it, of someone fighting hard just to hold on. Owen Ellis was at the well, hauling up a bucket of water when she rode into the yard. He looked up, and she saw surprise flash across his face, followed by wariness. Up close, she could see he was younger than she had first thought, probably no more than 25 or 26. His face was lean and tanned, with lines around his eyes that came from squinting into the sun. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of build that came from hard physical labor. "Miss Easton," he said, setting down the bucket, "I did not expect to see you again, especially not out here. Is something wrong?" She was surprised he remembered her name, then realized she had given it to the sheriff in his hearing. "I came to warn you. I overheard the sheriff and some other men talking. They are planning to come out here to convince you to give up your water rights." They were talking about accidents. Owen's expression did not change, but something hardened in his eyes. "I appreciate the warning, but I already know what they are planning. They have been making threats for weeks now." "Then why do you not go to the territorial authorities?" "If the sheriff is corrupt, the territorial authorities are 3 days' ride from here, and by the time they got involved, if they even cared, it would be too late. The Carmichael Company owns half this town, and they want my water." He studied her for a moment. "Why did you come all the way out here to warn me? You do not even know me." Rebecca dismounted, her legs unsteady after the ride. "Because what I heard was wrong. I do not know what the truth is about these water rights, but I know that threatening someone, talking about accidents, that is not justice." "The truth is simple enough," Owen said. "My father, Jonas Ellis, filed a proper claim to divert water from Cunningham Creek back in 1863, before the Carmichael Company even existed. He built this ranch on that water right. When he died last year, those rights passed to me. But the company has been expanding their mining operations, and they need more water. They figure if they can drive me out, they can claim the creek for themselves. But if you have legal documentation—" "That is the problem," Owen said, and for the first time she heard frustration in his voice. "The courthouse in Lake City burned down in '79. Most of the land records for this area went up in smoke. I've got a copy of the original claim, but the company lawyer says it is not enough, that without the official record, my claim is invalid. The company is offering me a pittance for my land, nowhere near what it is worth, and when I refused, they started making it clear I did not have a choice." "That is not right," Rebecca said. "There must be something you can do." "If there is, I have not found it yet," Owen said. He picked up the water bucket and started toward the house. "Come on. You rode all the way out here. The least I can do is offer you some water before you head back to town. It will be dark soon." Rebecca followed him into the house, which was dim and sparse but surprisingly neat. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and the furniture was handmade but solid. Everything about the place spoke of someone who worked hard and took care of what he had. Owen poured water into 2 tin cups and handed her one. "How did you end up in Animas Forks, Miss Easton?" "This is not exactly the kind of place refined ladies usually choose." "I am hardly refined," Rebecca said, "and I needed a change. I have been living with my aunt in St. Louis, teaching at her school, but I wanted something of my own. My brother Daniel wrote that they needed a teacher here, and it sounded like an adventure." She smiled ruefully. "Perhaps more of an adventure than I anticipated." "Daniel Easton is your brother." Owen's face cleared. "He is a good man. He has helped me out a few times, spoke up for me when the company was trying to turn the whole town against me." "That sounds like Daniel," Rebecca said. She sipped the water, which was cold and clean and tasted faintly of minerals. "This water really is good." "Best in the area," Owen said with a trace of pride. "The creek comes straight down from the snowmelt, filtered through granite. That is why the company wants it so bad. They need good, clean water for their operations." He set down his cup. "Look, Miss Easton, I appreciate you coming out here to warn me, but you need to get back to town before dark. The road is not safe at night, and I do not want you getting hurt because of me. I can take care of myself. Rebecca said, then immediately felt foolish because of course she could not really, not out here in this wild country. Owen smiled for the first time, and it transformed his face, made him look younger and less careworn. I am sure you can, but I would feel better seeing you safely back to town. Let me saddle my horse and I will ride with you. They rode back as the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold behind the peaks. Owen did not talk much, but his presence was oddly comforting. Rebecca found herself acutely aware of him, the easy way he sat his horse, the way his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. This was a man who had learned to be careful, to always watch for danger. When they reached the edge of town, Owen reined in. I will leave you here. I am not exactly welcome in Animas Forks after dark. This is wrong, Rebecca said suddenly. All of this. You should not have to live in fear, should not have to worry about men coming to hurt you because you will not give up what is rightfully yours. That is the way of things out here sometimes, Owen said quietly. The powerful take what they want and the law looks the other way, but I will not give up, Miss Easton. This ranch is all I have left of my father, and I will fight for it as long as I can. There must be some way to prove your claim, Rebecca insisted. What about other records? Where did your father come from? Maybe there are other documents. He came from Kansas Territory originally, but I do not know much more than that. He did not talk much about his past. Owen looked at her curiously. Why does this matter so much to you? Rebecca did not have a good answer for that. She barely knew this man, had only met him today. But something about him, about his quiet determination in the face of injustice, called to something in her. Because it is right, she finally said, and because someone should care. Owen's expression softened. Thank you, he said simply. That means more than you know, but please be careful. The sheriff and the company, they will not take kindly to anyone helping me. I do not want you to lose your position, or worse, because of me. I will be careful, Rebecca promised, though she was not sure it was a promise she could keep. She watched him ride away into the gathering dark, then turned her horse toward the livery stable. Her mind was already racing, thinking about what Owen had said about the burned courthouse, about his father's origins. There had to be something, some way to prove his claim. Daniel was waiting for her at the boarding house, his face creased with worry. He was 5 years older than her, tall and lanky, with their father's dark hair and their mother's gentle eyes. Rebecca, where have you been? Mrs. Chen said you went riding out of town. You just got here. You should not be going off alone. I went to warn Owen Ellis that the sheriff is planning something, Rebecca said, deciding honesty was the best approach with her brother. I overheard them talking. Daniel's face darkened. Rebecca, no, you cannot get involved in this. Owen is a friend, but the situation is dangerous. The Carmichael Company does not play games. Then help me, Rebecca said. Help me find a way to prove his claim to those water rights. You said the courthouse burned down, but there must be other records somewhere. I do not know what you think you can do, Daniel said, but she could see him wavering. The company has lawyers, money, influence. But we have the truth, Rebecca said. That has to count for something, Daniel sighed. You always were stubborn, just like Mother. All right, I will think about it. But promise me you will be careful. Mr. Carmichael is not a man to cross. I promise, Rebecca said, and this time she meant it. The next morning, Rebecca met her students for the first time. There were 14 of them, ranging in age from 6 to 15. The children of miners and shopkeepers and the few ranchers who still held land in the area. They were a rough bunch, unused to discipline. But Rebecca had learned from her aunt that firmness combined with genuine interest could win over even the most reluctant student. During the lunch break, she asked one of the older girls, a pretty redhead named Sarah, about the town's history. How long has the Carmichael Company been here? About 5 years, I think, Sarah said. They bought up most of the claims after the big strike. My pa works for them at the Lucky Irish. And the Ellis Ranch, how long has that been here? Sarah's expression grew guarded. I am not supposed to talk about that. My pa says the Ellis family are troublemakers. Why would he say that? I do not know, miss. I am sorry. Sarah hurried away, and Rebecca realized that the company's influence ran deeper than she had thought. That evening, Daniel came to her room with an armful of old newspapers. I have been thinking about what you said. There might be one place that has records from back when Jonas Ellis first filed his claim. The land office in Denver keeps duplicates of all territorial claims. If Jonas Ellis filed properly, there should be a record there. Denver is days away, Rebecca said. How would we get there? I cannot go, Daniel said. I've got responsibilities at the mine, but you could take the stagecoach. It is a 3-day journey there and back if the weather holds. I cannot just leave. I have only been here 2 days. What about the school? School can spare you for a few days. I will explain to the parents that you have family business in Denver. They will understand. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this, Rebecca? If you find proof of Owen's claim, you will be making powerful enemies. I am sure, Rebecca said, more certain than she had been of anything in a long time. When does the next stage leave? Tomorrow morning at dawn. Rebecca spent that night lying awake, wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. She barely knew Owen Ellis. By all rights, this was none of her business. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the look on his face when he talked about his father's ranch, the quiet determination mixed with exhaustion. No one should have to fight alone like that. The stagecoach journey to Denver was long and uncomfortable, but Rebecca used the time to think. If Jonas Ellis had filed a proper claim in 1863, there would be a record of it in Denver. The question was whether the land office would let her access those records, and whether they would be complete enough to stand up against the Carmichael Company's lawyers. Denver was a revelation after the small mining town. The streets were crowded with people, wagons, horses. Buildings rose 3 and 4 stories high. Rebecca felt like a country mouse, overwhelmed by the noise and bustle. The Territorial Land Office was an imposing brick building near the center of town. Rebecca climbed the steps with her heart pounding, trying to project a confidence she did not feel. The clerk at the front desk was a middle-aged man with spectacles and an air of weary bureaucracy. "Can I help you?" "I need to access land claim records from 1863 for the area around Animas Forks," Rebecca said. "Specifically, claims filed by Jonas Ellis." "Are you a lawyer?" "No, I am conducting research on behalf of Mr. Ellis's son." The clerk looked skeptical. "Those records are public, but it will take time to locate them. What is the specific claim number?" "I do not have it," Rebecca admitted. "I only have the approximate date and location." The clerk sighed. "That makes it harder. It could take days to search through the records from that period." "We have thousands of claims on file." "I have time," Rebecca said firmly. "Please, it is very important." Something in her tone must have convinced him because he nodded. "Very well. Give me the details you do have and I will see what I can find. Come back tomorrow afternoon." Rebecca spent the intervening time exploring Denver, marveling at the shops and restaurants, so different from the frontier simplicity of Animas Forks. She treated herself to a good meal in a real restaurant and a night in a hotel with clean sheets and hot water. It felt like luxury after the boarding house. When she returned to the land office the next afternoon, the clerk was waiting with a thick folder. "I found something," he said. "Claim filed by Jonas Ellis on June 15, 1863, for water rights to a tributary of the Animas River, specifically Cunningham Creek, for purposes of irrigation and domestic use. The claim was approved and registered. Rebecca's hands shook as she took the folder. "May I have a copy of this?" "For a fee, yes. It will take a few hours to make the copies." "I will wait," Rebecca said. By the time she boarded the stagecoach back to Animas Forks with the precious copies tucked carefully in her bag, she felt like she had won a great victory. But she knew this was only the beginning. Having proof was one thing, getting the Carmichael Company and the sheriff to acknowledge it was another. She arrived back in Animas Forks late in the evening, exhausted but triumphant. Daniel met her at the stagecoach. "Did you find anything?" "I found everything," Rebecca said, showing him the documents. "Official record of Jonas Ellis's water rights claim approved and registered. This is proof, Daniel, real proof." Her brother's face lit up. "This is incredible, Rebecca. Owen needs to see this right away." "In the morning," Rebecca said. "I am too tired to ride out there tonight, and I need to think about the best way to approach this." But morning brought unexpected complications. When Rebecca came downstairs for breakfast, Mrs. Chen pulled her aside. "The sheriff was here last night looking for you. He wanted to know where you had gone." "What did you tell him?" "That you had family business in Denver. He did not look happy." "Be careful, Miss Easton. I think he suspects something." Rebecca's appetite disappeared. She forced down some eggs and coffee, then told Daniel she was going to ride out to the Ellis ranch. "I need to show Owen these documents. We need to decide what to do next." "I will come with you," Daniel said. "If the sheriff is suspicious, you should not go alone." They rode out together under a brilliant blue sky, the aspens golden against the dark green of the pines. Rebecca found herself eager to see Owen again, to see his face when she showed him the proof she had found. She told herself it was just about helping someone in need, but there was something else, something she was not quite ready to name. They found the Ellis ranch in turmoil. One of the corrals had been torn down, fence posts pulled up and scattered. The door to the barn hung crooked on its hinges. And Owen was standing in the middle of it all, his face like thunder. "They came last night," he said when he saw them. "Half a dozen men wearing masks. They tore up the corral, spooked my horses. Found one of them this morning 3 miles away with a gash on its leg." His hands clenched into fists. "This is just the beginning. They are trying to run me off." "I have something," Rebecca said, dismounting quickly. She pulled out the documents from her saddlebag. "I went to Denver, to the Territorial Land Office. I found the official record of your father's claim." "Owen, this is real proof, registered and approved by the territorial government." Owen took the papers with hands that trembled slightly. He read through them slowly, and Rebecca watched emotions play across his face. Disbelief, hope, relief. When he looked up, his eyes were bright. "You went all the way to Denver for this? For me?" "Someone had to," Rebecca said, feeling suddenly shy under the intensity of his gaze. "This is good, Owen," Daniel said, studying the documents. "With these, you have got a strong legal case. The company cannot just dismiss this." "They can try," Owen said grimly. "They have got money and lawyers, but at least now I have got something to fight with." He looked at Rebecca. "I do not know how to thank you. You have given me hope when I had almost given up." "We still need a plan," Rebecca said practically, though her heart was beating fast at the look in Owen's eyes. "The sheriff is already suspicious. He came looking for me while I was gone. We need to present these documents in a way that cannot be ignored or buried." "There is a town meeting next week," Daniel said. "The company is supposed to present their plans for expanding the mining operations. If Owen could present his documents there in front of the whole town—" "They would never let me in," Owen interrupted. "The sheriff would find some reason to arrest me before I got near that meeting." "But they would let me in," Rebecca said slowly. "I am the schoolteacher. I have every right to attend town meetings. What if I presented the documents on your behalf? Absolutely not, Owen said immediately. That would put you directly in the company's crosshairs. I will not let you take that risk. It is not your decision to make, Rebecca said, lifting her chin. I am a grown woman and I can make my own choices. This is the right thing to do. She is right, Owen, Daniel said quietly. And as a mine employee, I can back her up. If we both stand up and present the evidence, it will be harder for them to dismiss it. Owen looked between them, his jaw tight. You both could lose everything. Your jobs, your reputations, maybe worse. Some things are worth fighting for, Rebecca said, and she was not entirely sure she was still talking about water rights. Over the next week, Rebecca and Daniel worked on preparing their presentation for the town meeting. Rebecca practiced what she would say, going over the documents until she had every detail memorized. Owen stayed away from town, working to repair the damage to his ranch, but twice Rebecca rode out to see him, ostensibly to discuss strategy but really just to be near him. On her second visit, as they sat on his porch watching the sun set behind the mountains, Owen said quietly, "Why are you really doing this, Rebecca?" She was silent for a long moment, watching the way the fading light painted the peaks purple and gold. When I was 15, my father lost our farm. A bank officer claimed we had missed payments, that the paperwork showed we were in default. It was not true. My father had made every payment on time. But he could not prove it, and we lost everything. We ended up living with my aunt in St. Louis, dependent on her charity. She turned to look at Owen. My father never recovered from it. The injustice of it broke something in him. He died 2 years later, and I have always believed it was partly from a broken heart. So when I see someone else facing that same kind of injustice, that same feeling of being powerless against lies and corruption, I cannot just walk away. Owen reached out and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm around hers. I am sorry about your father. And I am grateful that you are here, that you care enough to fight. But Rebecca, if this goes wrong, if the company decides to retaliate, then we will face it together, Rebecca said. She realized how that sounded, how presumptuous, but Owen was smiling. Together, he repeated. I like the sound of that. They sat there as darkness fell, hands linked, not talking, just being. Rebecca felt something shift in her chest, a recognition that this was more than just helping someone in need. Somewhere in the past week, Owen Ellis had become important to her in a way that had nothing to do with water rights or justice. The night before the town meeting, Rebecca could not sleep. She went over her presentation again and again, imagining all the ways it could go wrong. What if the company's lawyers claimed the documents were forgeries? What if the sheriff arrested her before she could speak? What if the townspeople simply did not care? But when she walked into the meeting hall the next evening with Daniel at her side and the documents clutched in her hand, she felt an unexpected calm settle over her. This was right. Whatever happened, she had done what she could. The hall was packed with miners, shopkeepers, their wives and families. At the front, a long table held the town council members, with the sheriff sitting at one end and a well-dressed man she did not recognize at the other. That must be Carmichael himself, she realized. The meeting droned on with routine business, discussions about road repairs, complaints about the noise from the stamp mills, a request to extend the school year. Rebecca sat rigid in her seat, waiting for her chance. Finally, the chairman called for new business. Rebecca stood up before she could lose her nerve. I would like to address the council about the matter of the Ellis water rights claim. A murmur ran through the crowd. The sheriff's face darkened. This is not the time or place for that discussion, Miss Easton. Sit down. I believe it is exactly the time and place, Rebecca said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "This is a matter that affects the entire community, and it needs to be settled with truth and transparency, not threats and intimidation." "Young lady, you are out of order," the chairman said, but he looked uncertain. "Let her speak," a voice called from the back. Rebecca recognized Mrs. Chen. "If the sheriff has got nothing to hide, what is the harm in listening?" Other voices joined in, and Rebecca saw the council members exchange glances. Finally, the chairman nodded. "Very well. You have 5 minutes, Miss Easton." Rebecca stepped forward, her hands steady as she held up the documents. In 1863, Jonas Ellis filed a legal claim for water rights to Cunningham Creek for purposes of irrigation and domestic use. This claim was approved and registered by the Territorial Land Office in Denver. I have here official copies of those records, which clearly show that Owen Ellis, as Jonas Ellis's heir, has full legal right to the water flowing through his property. She began reading from the documents, her voice clear and strong. The crowd listened in rapt silence. When she finished, she looked directly at the well-dressed man at the council table. "Mr. Carmichael, I presume. Your company has been claiming that Owen Ellis has no legal right to that water, but these documents prove otherwise. The claim is valid, properly filed, and legally binding." Carmichael stood slowly. He was a portly man with graying hair and cold eyes. "Those documents are meaningless. The original courthouse records were destroyed in the fire of '79. Without the original filing, that claim cannot be verified." "These are not copies of courthouse records," Rebecca said. "These are copies from the Territorial Land Office in Denver, which maintains its own independent records of all land and water claims. They are signed and sealed by the Territorial Land Commissioner. They are legal proof." "Let me see those," the chairman said. Rebecca brought the documents to the table, and the council members passed them around, studying them carefully. "They look legitimate to me," one of the councilmen said finally. "Official seals, proper signatures. I do not see how we can dismiss this." "This is absurd," Carmichael said, his face reddening. "That woman has no legal standing. She is not a lawyer, she is just a meddling schoolteacher. This council should reject this ridiculous charade and vote to approve my company's request for expanded water rights." "Your company's request is to take water that legally belongs to Owen Ellis," Daniel said, standing up. "And I can attest that everything Miss Easton has said is true. I have known Owen for 2 years. He is an honest man who has been trying to defend his rightful property against intimidation and threats. If this council has any integrity, it will recognize his claim and put an end to this harassment." "Harassment," the sheriff sputtered. "That is a lie. Owen Ellis is the one causing trouble, refusing to cooperate with legitimate business interests. Legitimate business interests do not send masked men to tear up corrals and injure livestock in the middle of the night," Rebecca said sharply. "That happened just last week." "Is that your idea of legitimate business, Sheriff?" the crowd erupted in angry muttering. Rebecca saw several people nodding, others whispering to their neighbors. The tide was turning. "Order," the chairman called, banging his gavel. "I think this matter requires more study. I propose we table the vote on the water rights expansion until we can have these documents verified and reviewed by a proper lawyer." "I object," Carmichael said. "This is a delaying tactic." "And I insist," the chairman said firmly. "This is too important to rush. The council will take these documents under advisement and reconvene on this matter in 2 weeks. Meeting adjourned." As the crowd began to disperse, Rebecca felt a hand on her elbow. She turned to find the sheriff glaring at her. "You have made a big mistake, Miss Easton." "Mr. Carmichael is not a forgiving man." "Neither am I," Rebecca said, pulling her arm free. If you threaten me again, Sheriff, I will report you to the territorial authorities myself." The sheriff's eyes narrowed, but he stepped back. As Rebecca made her way out of the hall with Daniel, she heard voices calling encouragement, people thanking her for speaking up. Not everyone in Animas Forks was under the company's thumb, it seemed. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Rebecca wrapped her shawl tighter, suddenly shaking with the aftermath of adrenaline. "Do you think it worked? Do you think the council will uphold Owen's claim?" "I think you gave them no choice," Daniel said proudly. "You were magnificent, sister. Father would have been so proud." Tears stung Rebecca's eyes at the mention of their father. "I hope so. I hope this time justice wins." A figure detached itself from the shadows near the corner of the building, and Rebecca's heart jumped before she recognized Owen. He strode toward her, and even in the dim light from the windows she could see the emotion on his face. "Rebecca," he said, and then he was pulling her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. She could feel his heart hammering. "Thank you, thank you. I never thought anyone would stand up for me like that." Rebecca let herself lean into him for just a moment, breathing in the scent of leather and pine and something uniquely him. Then she pulled back, aware of Daniel watching with interest and the people still filing out of the meeting hall. "We are not done yet. Carmichael is not going to give up easily." "No," Owen agreed. "But for the first time in months I have got real hope, and I have got you to thank for that." The way he was looking at her made Rebecca's breath catch. There was something in his eyes, something warm and wondering that made her feel like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. This was dangerous, she thought. This man could break her heart if she let him. But when he smiled at her, slow and genuine, she thought maybe it would be worth the risk. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca threw herself into teaching, trying to maintain normalcy while the town buzzed with gossip about the water rights dispute. Some people went out of their way to thank her for speaking up. Others avoided her gaze, clearly uncomfortable with her defiance of the company. She understood. Most of them depended on Carmichael's mines for their livelihoods. Owen came into town 3 times that week, always finding excuses to stop by the school when classes were done. He brought her wildflowers once, looking almost embarrassed as he handed them over. "They grow up near the creek. I thought you might like them." "They are beautiful," Rebecca said, touched by the gesture. "Thank you." They talked about everything and nothing. His childhood growing up on the ranch, her memories of life in Missouri before the farm was lost, their dreams and fears. Rebecca learned that Owen had a quick wit beneath his serious exterior, that he loved to read but rarely had access to books, that he had taught himself to play the fiddle but had not picked it up in months, too tired and worried to find joy in music. "When this is over," she said impulsively, "you should play for me." "I would like that," Owen said, and the warmth in his voice made her heart skip. Daniel noticed, of course. "You are falling for him," he said one evening, not quite making it a question. "Is it that obvious?" "To me, yes." "I know you, Rebecca, but be careful. Even if the council rules in Owen's favor, the company might not accept it. This could still end badly." "I know," Rebecca said, "but I cannot help how I feel." "Does he feel the same way?" Rebecca thought about the way Owen looked at her, the way he found excuses to touch her hand, the way his voice softened when he said her name. "I think so. I hope so." The night before the reconvened meeting, Owen showed up at the boarding house just as Rebecca was finishing dinner. Mrs. Chen let him in with a knowing look. "You have got a visitor, Miss Easton. I will give you 10 minutes in the parlor, then he needs to leave. Propriety, you understand." Owen looked uncomfortable in the small parlor, too big for the delicate furniture. "I probably should not have come, but I needed to see you. To say, whatever happens tomorrow, you have changed everything for me. Not just with the water rights, but—" he paused, struggling for words. I have been so focused on just surviving, on fighting, that I forgot what it felt like to hope for something more. You reminded me that life can be more than just struggle." Rebecca crossed to him, taking his hands in hers. They were rough and calloused, the hands of a man who worked hard for everything he had. "Owen, let me finish," he said gently. "I am not a man of means. Even if I win tomorrow, this ranch is all I have, and it is a hard life. I've got no right to ask anything of you. But if things work out, if I can hold on to what is mine, I would like the chance to court you proper. To see if maybe what I am feeling, what I think you might be feeling too, could become something real." "It already is something real," Rebecca said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And yes, Owen Ellis, I would very much like you to court me," he smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. Then, with a glance toward the door where Mrs. Chen was undoubtedly listening, he lifted Rebecca's hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Tomorrow, then. Whatever comes, we will face it together." The reconvened meeting was even more crowded than the first. Word had spread throughout the mining district, and people had come from miles around to see how the council would rule. Rebecca sat with Daniel near the front, her stomach in knots. Owen was not there. It was too risky for him to come into town with tensions running so high. The chairman gavelled the meeting to order and cleared his throat. "The council has reviewed the documents presented by Miss Easton, and we have consulted with a lawyer from Denver. His opinion is that the Territorial Land Office records are legally valid and constitute proof of Jonas Ellis's original water rights claim. Therefore, this council finds that Owen Ellis has full legal right to the water from Cunningham Creek, as defined in the original 1863 claim." Relief crashed over Rebecca so intensely that she felt dizzy. Around her, the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and angry shouts. She saw Carmichael surge to his feet, his face purple with rage. "This is an outrage," he bellowed. "I will appeal this decision to the territorial governor. I will sue Ellis for every penny he has got. This is not over." "Actually, it is," a new voice said from the back of the hall. Everyone turned to see a gray-haired man in a fine suit making his way forward. "My name is Charles Whitmore. I am a lawyer from Denver, and I represent Owen Ellis. Any attempt to appeal this decision, or to harass my client further, will result in legal action against the Carmichael Company. We are prepared to file suit for damages related to the destruction of property and intimidation tactics employed by your employees and associates." Carmichael stared at the lawyer in shock. "Ellis cannot afford a lawyer." "He does not have to," Whitmore said calmly. "I am working pro bono. This case has attracted attention in Denver, Mr. Carmichael. The territorial government does not look kindly on companies that try to bully honest ranchers off their land. You can choose to accept this ruling gracefully, or you can face a very public and very expensive legal battle. The choice is yours." Rebecca turned to Daniel in amazement. "Did you know about this?" "I sent letters to several lawyers in Denver after you found those documents," Daniel admitted. "I explained the situation, and Mr. Whitmore wrote back saying he would be interested in taking the case. I did not know he was coming today, though." "You are a good brother," Rebecca said, hugging him. The chairman banged his gavel. "This matter is settled. The council recognizes Owen Ellis's water rights. Meeting adjourned." As the crowd dispersed, Rebecca pushed her way outside, desperate to get to Owen to tell him the news. But he was already there, standing by a wagon across the street. He must have been waiting, unable to stay away despite the risk. When he saw her, his face broke into a wide smile. Rebecca ran to him, propriety forgotten, and he caught her up in his arms, spinning her around. "We won," she said breathlessly. "Owen, we won. The council ruled in your favor, and there is a lawyer from Denver who says he will represent you if Carmichael tries anything. I know. Whitmore came out to see me yesterday, told me what Daniel had done. I could not believe it. Owen set her down but kept his hands on her waist. People were staring, but Rebecca did not care. It is over. Finally over. Not quite, came a cold voice. They turned to find the sheriff standing a few feet away, his hand resting on his gun. Owen Ellis, you are under arrest for trespassing and destruction of property. What are you talking about? Owen said sharply. I have not left my ranch in days. Funny, because Mr. Carmichael's foreman says you were seen near the Lucky Irish mine last night, tampering with equipment. The sheriff pulled out handcuffs. Come along quietly now. This is absurd, Rebecca said. He was not anywhere near the mine, he was at his ranch. Can you prove that, miss? The sheriff asked with a nasty smile. Did you spend the night at his ranch? Rebecca flushed, understanding the trap. If she said yes, her reputation would be ruined. If she said no, Owen had no alibi. I can prove it, a woman's voice said. Mrs. Chen pushed through the small crowd that had gathered. Owen Ellis was at my boarding house last night, in the parlor, speaking with Miss Easton until I sent him away at 8 o'clock. Then, I personally saw him ride out of town heading north toward his ranch. So unless he rode all the way back to tamper with mine equipment and then rode home again, your charges are false. The sheriff's face darkened. You are lying to protect him. I do not lie, Mrs. Chen said coldly. And I do not appreciate being called a liar by a corrupt sheriff who does the bidding of rich men. Now, unless you have real evidence, leave this young man alone. The sheriff looked around at the gathered crowd, clearly calculating. Finally, he stepped back. This is not over, Ellis. I will be watching you. Watch all you like, Owen said evenly. I have got nothing to hide. As the sheriff stalked away, Owen turned to Mrs. Chen. Thank you, I will not forget this. Just name your first child after me, Mrs. Chen said with a rare smile. Then she looked at Rebecca. Take him somewhere proper for once. You two need to talk without half the town watching. Rebecca felt her face heat again, but she took Owen's hand. Come on, let's go for a walk. They walked out to the edge of town, following a path that led up into the aspens. The leaves whispered overhead and the air smelled of pine and coming autumn. When they were out of sight of the town, Owen stopped and turned to face her. Rebecca, I meant what I said yesterday. I want to court you to do this right, but you need to understand what you would be getting into. The ranch is not much and there is always work to be done. Money is tight most of the time. It is not an easy life. Do you think I care about easy? Rebecca said. I grew up on a farm, Owen. I know what hard work looks like. And I would rather have a hard life with someone I love than an easy life with someone I do not. Owen went very still. Love? Rebecca had not meant to say it quite so soon, but there was no taking it back now. Yes, love. I love you, Owen Ellis. I think I started falling for you the moment I saw you standing in that street, refusing to back down even with a bullet kicking up dust at your feet. You are the bravest, most honorable man I have ever met, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it now. For a long moment, Owen just stared at her. Then he pulled her close and kissed her, deep and fierce and full of all the emotion he could not put into words. Rebecca kissed him back, her arms around his neck, feeling like she was finally home. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. I think I have loved you since you rode out to warn me, this fierce little woman who barely knew me but cared enough to help. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I am not fool enough to question it. So we are doing this? Rebecca asked. Really doing this? If you will have me, I would like to marry you, Owen said. Not right away. I know you need time and we should court proper first. But eventually, If you are willing, I want you as my wife." "Yes," Rebecca said simply. "Yes to all of it." They walked back to town hand in hand, making plans. Owen would focus on building up the ranch now that the water rights were secure. Rebecca would continue teaching, at least for the rest of the school year. They would court for a few months, give the town time to adjust to the idea, and then marry in the spring. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, a early snow hit the mountains, unseasonable and fierce. The temperature dropped drastically, and suddenly livestock all over the area were at risk. Owen worked around the clock to get his horses and cattle under shelter, to make sure they had food and water. Rebecca helped when she could, riding out to the ranch after school to carry hay or help mend fences. The work was exhausting, but she found she did not mind. There was something satisfying about working alongside Owen, about the way they moved together, anticipating each other's needs. It was during one of these long evenings, working by lantern light in the barn, that Owen said, "Why wait until spring? Let's get married now." Rebecca looked up from the hay she was spreading. "Now, in the middle of a snowstorm, why not? We love each other. We want to build a life together. Every day we wait is just another day we are apart. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to fall asleep holding you every night. I do not want to wait any more." Rebecca felt warmth spread through her chest. What about propriety? What about giving the town time to adjust? The town can adjust to us being married just as easily as they can adjust to us courting. Rebecca, life is short and uncertain. I almost lost everything. I almost lost the chance to even meet you. I do not want to waste any more time. Owen crossed to her and took her hands. "Marry me, this week. We will have Daniel stand up with us and Mrs. Chen as witness. We will make it legal and proper, and then we will start our life together. What do you say?" Rebecca thought about her tiny room at the boarding house, about sleeping alone while Owen was miles away at the ranch. She thought about propriety and what people would say and whether they were rushing into things. Then she thought about Owen's arms around her, about waking up next to him every morning, about building a life together. "Yes," she said. "Yes, let's do it. Let's get married now." They were married 3 days later in the small church in Animas Forks. Daniel gave Rebecca away, beaming with pride. Mrs. Chen cried, which surprised everyone. The minister seemed bemused by the hasty wedding but performed the ceremony properly. Owen wore his best shirt and Rebecca wore a blue dress she had brought from St. Louis. They had no rings, but Owen gave her a simple gold necklace that had been his mother's. "With this I thee wed," he said, fastening it around her neck. "Everything I have is yours, my land, my water, my heart. I will love you and protect you all the days of my life. And I will stand with you through everything," Rebecca promised. "In good times and hard times, in drought and flood, in sickness and health. I love you, Owen. I choose you today and always." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed her with such tenderness that Rebecca felt tears slip down her cheeks. This was real. This was her life now, and it was more than she had ever dreamed possible. They spent their first night as husband and wife at the ranch, in the small cabin that was now their home. Owen had cleaned and prepared everything, putting fresh linens on the bed and wildflowers in a jar on the table. "It is not much," he said, looking around at the modest room. "It is perfect," Rebecca said and meant it. "It is ours." That first winter was hard but happy. The snow kept coming, piling deep in the mountain valleys. Rebecca had to close the school for 2 weeks when the roads became impassable. She spent those weeks at the ranch with Owen, learning the rhythms of his life, the work that needed doing, the careful husbandry required to keep livestock alive through the bitter cold. They talked for hours by the fire, learning each other's stories, sharing dreams. Owen taught her to shoot. insisting she needed to know how to protect herself when he was out working. Rebecca taught him to read better. He knew the basics, but had never had much formal schooling. They read together in the evenings, books borrowed from the few families in the area who had them. And they fell more deeply in love with each passing day. Rebecca had never imagined that marriage could be like this easy partnership and fierce affection. Owen was patient and gentle, making sure she felt safe and cherished. And she discovered that she was stronger than she had known, capable of doing hard work and facing challenges she never would have attempted back in St. Louis. In March, the snow finally began to melt, and Rebecca discovered she was pregnant. She told Owen one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the peaks in shades of rose and gold. "A baby," he said wonderingly, placing his hand on her still flat stomach. "We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" Rebecca asked, suddenly uncertain. "Happy. Rebecca, I am more than happy. I am blessed. A year ago I thought I was going to lose everything. Now I have a wife I adore, a secure future, and a child on the way. How could I be anything but grateful?" The baby was born in November, during the first snowfall of the season. It was a boy, strong and healthy, with his father's blue eyes. They named him Jonas after Owen's father, and he brought a new kind of joy to their lives. Watching Owen with their son, so gentle and patient, Rebecca felt her heart swell with love. This man, who had seemed so hard and wary when she first met him, had opened up completely, becoming tender and playful with his child. The ranch prospered over the next few years. With the water rights secure, Owen was able to expand his operations, bringing in more cattle, building new barns and corrals. Rebecca continued teaching for a few more years until Jonas needed more attention. Then she focused on the ranch and their growing family. They had 3 more children over the next several years. A daughter they named Clara, then another son called Thomas, and finally another daughter, little Margaret. The house that had seemed so empty and sad when Rebecca first saw it became filled with noise and laughter, with muddy boots in the doorway and toys scattered across the floor. The Carmichael Company eventually pulled out of the area as the easily accessible ore played out. The sheriff left with them, and a new, honest lawman took his place. Animas Forks evolved from a rough mining camp into a more stable community, and Owen and Rebecca became respected members, known for their fairness and hard work. Daniel stayed in the area, eventually marrying a widow with 2 children of her own. He and Owen became close friends as well as brothers-in-law, often working together to help other ranchers and farmers in the region. Mrs. Chen remained a fixture at the boarding house, growing older but no less sharp. She was a favorite of the Ellis children, always having a sweet treat hidden away for them when they came to town. Years later, sitting on that same porch where Owen had first asked her to marry him, watching their grandchildren play in the yard, Rebecca thought about the strange path that had brought her here. If she had never overheard that conversation, if she had not ridden out to warn a stranger, if she had not gone to Denver to search for documents, her entire life would have been different. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked, taking her hand. His hair was gray now, his face more lined, but his blue eyes were just as bright as they had been that first day. "I am thinking about how lucky we are," Rebecca said. "How one choice, one moment of deciding to do the right thing changed everything." "You saved me," Owen said quietly. "In more ways than one. You saved my ranch, yes, but more than that, you saved me from becoming bitter and hard. You gave me back hope, back my life. You gave me everything that matters." "We saved each other," Rebecca corrected. "You gave me a home, a purpose, a family. You gave me a love I never thought I would find." They sat together as the sun set behind the mountains, hands linked, surrounded by the life they had built together. The water still flowed clear and cold from Cunningham Creek, running through the land that was now home to 4 generations of Ellises. The fight for those water rights had been hard, but it had brought Rebecca and Owen together, forging a love strong enough to weather any storm. And as the first stars began to appear in the deepening twilight, Rebecca thought that she would not change a single thing about the path that had led her here, to this man, to this life, to this perfect moment of contentment. Some things, she had learned, were worth fighting for. And some loves were worth every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of uncertainty. The wild mountains held them safe, the creek sang its eternal song, and the Ellis family thrived, bound together by love that had begun with one brave choice and grown into something that would last for generations. It was a good life, a rich life, full of hard work and deep joy. And it all began the day a teacher decided to stand up for what was right and found not just justice, but love. Jonas Ellis, now a young man himself, had taken over much of the ranch work from his aging father. He had his father's steady nature and his mother's fierce sense of justice. Clara had become a teacher like her mother, running the school in Animas Forks. Thomas was studying law in Denver, determined to help people like his father who faced injustice. And Margaret, still young, showed signs of being a gifted artist, always sketching the mountains and wildlife around their home. "Papa," Jonas said one evening, coming to find his parents on the porch, "I have been thinking. That story about how Mama saved the ranch, about the water rights and everything. Have you written it down? Because it should be remembered, passed down to our children and their children." Owen looked at Rebecca and smiled. "Your mother remembers every detail. She could tell it better than anyone." "Then I will write it down," Rebecca said. "The whole story from the beginning, so that future generations will know what we fought for and why this land, this water, this family matters so much." And she did. Over the next months, Rebecca wrote out the entire story, from her arrival in Animas Forks to the fight for the water rights to the life she and Owen had built together. She wrote about love and justice, about standing up for what was right even when it was difficult, about the unexpected ways that courage could be rewarded. When she finished, she gave the manuscript to Jonas. "Keep this safe," she said. "This is your heritage. This is the story of how love and truth won out over greed and corruption. It is a story worth remembering." The story was copied and shared, becoming a part of the family's history. The Ellis Ranch remained in the family for generations, the water from Cunningham Creek still flowing clear and pure, a testament to one man's determination to hold on to what was his and one woman's courage to help him prove it. Owen lived to be 79, dying peacefully in his sleep with Rebecca beside him, still holding her hand as he had for more than 40 years. Rebecca lived another 5 years after that, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. When she died, they buried her next to Owen on a hill overlooking the creek, where the aspens turned gold in autumn, and the mountains stood eternal watch. And the creek still flows today, through land that bears the Ellis name, a reminder that some battles are worth fighting, some loves are worth any risk, and justice, though it may be delayed, will ultimately prevail when good people have the courage to stand up for what is right. The story of Rebecca and Owen became a legend in the area, told and retold, a reminder of a time when the West was wild and uncertain, when water meant life or death, and when love could bloom even in the midst of conflict and hardship. It was a story of courage and perseverance, of two people who found each other against all odds and built something lasting. In the end, the fight over the water rights had been about more than just water. It had been about dignity and justice, about the right to keep what was honestly earned, about standing up against bullies and corruption. But most of all, it had been the beginning of a love story that would echo through the generations, a testament to the power of doing what is right and the rewards that can come from courage. The mountains still stand over Animas Forks, the creek still runs cold and clear, and the Ellis family still tends the land that Rebecca fought so hard to protect. And on quiet evenings, when the sun sets in a blaze of color and the aspens whisper their secrets to the wind, you can almost hear the echo of a promise made long ago: to love and protect, through drought and flood, in good times and bad, forever and always.